loveheal.com. I'm here with Maria, who is a wonderful inspiration to me. I've known Maria for about 10 years. She trained me as a registered nurse back when I was 26.
My dad already.
Back when I was 20. Anyhow, Maria is a mother. She's a registered nurse, and she's also a humanitarian. She does humanitarian work. She works with a youth group at CERI, right? The Center for Empowerment of Refugees and Immigrants up in Oakland. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about her story. Okay, Maria, so we're going to talk about 9 years old. Take us back to when you were age 9. Tell us where you're from and the story of how you ended up here.
Well, back in probably 1960, 74, somewhere around there, my mother and a couple of other family members, her sister-in-laws, heard rumors that their husbands were having affairs. They were here in the United States and they were back in Mexico.
The husbands were here in the U.S. and the wives were in Mexico. Okay.
Yeah. So they heard and they decided to gather their little belongings and their smallest children they had. Back then, it was 8 of us, brothers and sisters, and I think most of us were born except 2 that were born here. So they decided to leave with the youngest. The youngest must have been 6 months. The second must have been about probably around 4 years old. Mm-hmm. So my mom left with those kids. The others left with their youngest kids. And then once she came to the United States and spent a few years, worked, then she decided to send for the rest of the children, which is very common with most of our, parents did back then with the children. First, you'll see the husband here, and then the wife joins because of some rumor that they're losing their husband, so they
drama.
Take off. And so when the time came, my mother sent the message to my grandmother. We stayed with our grandmother back then, my mom's mom. When I heard the news, I threw my hands up in the air and said, I want to go next. So before I knew it, my grandma put me on the bus. And I have to tell this because my grandma said to me, she said in Spanish, ¿Cuál de los dos amantes sufre más penas? El que se va o el que se queda? And this is a very popular Mexican song. It talks about 2 lovers. And in the song, one of the lovers asked the other, which of the 2 lovers suffer the most? The one that stays behind or the ones that leaves? I never understood, those words that my grandmother was telling me until the day she died. And anyway, that's another whole story.
Okay.
But you can probably imagine which of the 2 suffer the most, right? Mm. And so with those words, which I have never forgotten in my life, I left Mexico to come to America. Mm. When I came to America, things were not that peachy. We all think of coming to America because there's lots of dollars and there's
the land of opportunity.
The land of opportunity, the golden land here. My dad had a drinking problem. He was an alcoholic. There was a lot of domestic violence between them, and many times I remember I would have to jump through the windows because my dad was choking my mom, and somehow I took the role because I was the second oldest. I have an older sister. It's 8 of us total. So the 2 oldest are the girls. And so for some reason I just could not, in my heart, stand a man beating a woman. Mm-hmm.
So you were the protector. You jumped in.
I was the one that somehow had the strength to get up and go defend, I guess, my mother and stop that, from probably having caused a death at this time. Mm. And
That must have been.
And that was like an everyday thing. I will never forget that every night, my hands would get very nervous, my palms of the hands sweat, and I felt very weak, like I was losing it, because it was time for my dad to come home, and it all was just
Really hard to
very very hard to deal with. But
as a child.
Somehow I got the strength, and I put up with it every night, and the kind of cycle that an addiction or any violent behaviors occurred in most of our children's home. So with that in mind, I kind of detested alcohol and drugs, and I escaped from that environment to exceeding in sports and academics. I became to be the All-American in basketball and got many awards in the different sports. I played volleyball. I was the most valuable player every year, same in basketball. And I played tennis, I ran track, I was very fast too. That's how I was able to get away from my parents when they were after me when I was younger.
So you were able to cope with what was going on at home by putting in all of that energy to sports and academics at school.
Yes.
And you met one of your mentors, who's one of your mentors today, which is Mona, whose family supported and kind of embraced you when you were in high school, right?
Yes, I was very fortunate. When I was in high school, I met my friend who has been my hero and will be my hero for the rest of my days there. I hope she sees this video.
Mona.
Because, her name is Mona. She is now the founder of SARI, which is the Center for Empowering Immigrant Refugees, and they're mostly from Cambodia. So anyway, I met her back in my early years in high school. She was doing her internship for her psychology and doing her master's at that time. She started a young women's group, and how I got to her group is one of my friends somehow told me about it, and there was some involvement from the counselor, and they suggested that I try this new young women's group.
Young women's group.
So I started attending, but I did not say much. I was very shy. That was another of my weakness. I was shy up to not even coming out of a house, even to greet relatives when they visited. That's how shy I was. Right?
Okay.
Don't believe this now, but
I don't believe that. Yeah, that doesn't sound like you, Maria.
I was very shy. I was very shy at that time. Until then.
Okay.
So I started going to these meetings, and then because I wouldn't say much, somehow Mona took a little interest in me and started seeing me separately. I often say I was her first client because she's not a psychologist.
Okay.
Okay. And so I was her first client, and she started seeing me separately. I still wouldn't say much for many of her visits or many of our encounters. So I started writing her. I would write her books about me and my life, and what was going on in my life at that time. And nobody knew that I was going through so much at home because I was so popular in school. I was the A student. I was the top athlete from whatever sport I played.
Okay.
And I think that's a way for me to kind of probably enjoy my life in terms of turmoil. And so I lived a life. So after I met Mona, her whole family became very involved, because then she introduced me to her sister, and then later I will go to the library with her a lot. And we did.
So this family really mentored you and embraced you, and they were very politically involved in the cause of their people, right? The Iranian community, and so they were very active in that community, and so you got to be a part of that. Right,
yeah,
at
and
that
then
time.
Other organizations we were involved with.
Right. So Mona ended up developing SARI, which is the Center for the Empowerment of the Refugee Immigrants, and that's where you do a lot of your work with now.
Yes.
Correct? I got a chance to go up there with you and experience some of the work that they do, and it was wonderful. It was a great it was great to meet Mona and the girls and see the work that you guys are doing there with the groups, the girls groups, the women's group. Tell us a little bit about why what drives you to work with these girls now? Like, what are your reasons?
Well, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the center, just so that all of you that are listening, hearing it for the first time. Mona developed this center because in one of her jobs, the funding for this particular group of people were cut at one point. And so a lot of these clients came from the Khmer War back in the early 1970s, and most of them came to be refugees here of America. They went to different countries, whoever took them. So there is a large group of them in Oakland. There's also
from Cambodia, right?
From Cambodia, and another group in Long Beach. Okay. Well, the group I know, the most that I'm more close to is this particular group, because this is one of the groups that the SERI helps. And so I've had the chance to go visit them back in either towards the end of 2012, 2013, I think was my first visit to the center. And what I found in this center was so amazing. You have people who have gone through the war, lost brothers and sisters and parents. They were separated. They had nothing to eat at one point. Their relatives will kill in front of them.
It was like a genocide going on over there. So they went through horrible things. Mm-hmm.
They went through, the most horrible things that a human being can go. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I first visited the center. My friend Mona asked me to speak with them and, tell them a little bit about myself. And when I did that, and then, the love that I received in the center, and the peace and the joy and the just the whole atmosphere of this place just took me to another level of peace, because you find these women that are able to laugh and enjoy themselves in spite of what they carry, in them. And just to, make a long story short, I fell in love with the center. I fell in love with what they do for this, human beings, and how they can use this center. I see it as a light that they have the chance to come and be themselves, and to, have a hour or 2 hours or a whole day of peace, and knowing that at the end of the day they go back to their daily lives. So I started coming. Then that same day or that same week, I saw some of the different groups that they help. They have a lot of activities for them. They have a Zumba class. They have a fishing for the men once a month. They have a potluck for everybody. They come and dance and eat, and they'll bring, their dishes, their Cambodian dishes.
So it sounds like a lot of
they do a lot of
groups.
I think healing for them. And then they have a young women's group. I also had the opportunity to meet them, talk to them, talk a little bit about myself. This young woman basically, they're struggling in life just like we all did at one point. Some of us worse, drugs, alcohol, not going to school, dropping out of school. And so they're
this
just
is the youth group that I got to meet.
This is the youth group, yes. And so we're just trying to, get them to get back on their path. A lot of them are already attending college, finishing high school, and just trying to.
So you're now mentoring young women the way that you felt you were mentored as well.
Yeah, I was given the opportunity in my life to, to meet such a wonderful human beings like Mona is, and then I think I felt the need to, give a little bit back to the greatness or goodness that I got in my life. So it's, a big pleasure that I get from it. Plus, I fell in love with each one of them.
Right, awesome. Recently, you just went on a trip. Where did you go?
I went to Peru.
Peru, yes. And you were telling us that you guys took was it a horse ride?
I took, we met some kids that were selling, like hats and souvenirs from Peru. We met them and we started talking to them. So we invited them to go on a tour with us because we had arranged a tour for the city the next day. So Mona and Tahi took them to dinner that night, and then the next day we decided to invite them for a tour. And we took them for a tour. When we reached the top of the mountain, it was just amazing, okay? And
view.
It was an amazing view. And someone said, "Oh, you guys want to go for a horse ride? A ranch is a few minutes from here." So I decided to take the kids. Three of the kids joined us, the three boys that we have met. And so I went with them, took off for the horse ride, and Mona continued, and her husband and her sister-in-law continue with the tour.
Okay.
But I took the kids.
It was a great time.
Yeah, I took the kids. They had a great time. First time for most of them.
And they've lived there all their life.
And they've lived there all their life, yeah. And I've not been able to afford to do that. So we had an amazing horse ride. Even though I have done it, that was the best horse ride of my life. Wow. Just to see those mountains and to be free and to, see those kids smile and enjoy it. I mean, that's the best you can do on a trip.
That's one of the things I admire about you is when you travel or you go somewhere, you're always still looking to invite somebody along to enjoy your happiness, and that's what life's about. That's what happiness is about.
I cannot do it by myself. Somebody, we have to kind of share our joy and our blessings.
So you're the mother of 4 young men, and what are their ages?
Oldest is 26, the next one is 24, 22, and 20, the youngest.
Okay. So you have any words of wisdom or any words you want to share with us about raising strong young men?
Well, you have to love them. You have to you have to be the example to your kids, whether it's boys, girls. Because actions can teach those kids a lot, okay?
Okay.
Words, we can promise lots of things, but you have to live it yourself. And I think that's probably the best advice that I can give you. And I can say that I have showed them with my actions.
Absolutely. I got the pleasure of speaking with a couple of your sons right before the interview, and that's what they had to say. My mom's a great example. She's a great example. I'm who I am today because of my mom. So that's very inspiring for me as a mother of 2 sons myself. So thank you very much.